In Zen and Buddhist philosophy, there's a simple yet powerful lesson. You don't have to stay where you're not valued. A lotus doesn't bloom in barren land. This wisdom teaches us that holding on to people or situations that don't appreciate us leads to suffering. Have you ever felt invisible in someone's presence, as if your worth had faded in their eyes? That feeling stings, but it also holds an important lesson. Your value isn't decided by others. It comes from within. This is the story of a seeker who learned the power of self-respect and detachment after facing rejection. A seeker lived in a peaceful place, surrounded by nature. They spent their days helping others, giving their time, kindness, and wisdom without asking for much in return. But over time, something changed. The same people who once sought their guidance began to ignore them. Their kindness was taken for granted, and their presence felt unimportant. Confused and hurt, the seeker went to their teacher for advice. The teacher listened patiently and then asked, "What happens when you pour water into a cup that's already full?" "It overflows," the seeker answered. "Exactly," the teacher said. "You keep giving your energy to people who no longer appreciate it. It's time to step back and redirect your energy where it's valued." To explain further, the teacher shared a story. There was once a pearl of unmatched beauty. People admired it at first, but as it passed from hand to hand, they forgot its value. It was treated like an ordinary stone, ignored and discarded. But did the pearl lose its worth? Or did people lose the ability to see its brilliance? The seeker understood the message. Their worth hadn't changed. Others had just stopped noticing it. The first step to restoring balance was to stop seeking validation from those who no longer valued them. The power of silence and distance. The teacher then said, "Don't argue, don't beg, and don't seek explanations. When someone doesn't value you, step back in silence. Observe without anger. Detach without resentment. Let your absence speak louder than your presence." The seeker followed this advice. They stopped offering help where it wasn't appreciated, withdrew from those who ignored them, and focused on personal growth. At first, people were confused. They wondered about the seeker's sudden change, but in their absence, the seeker's true worth became clear. Tasks they once handled effortlessly now became difficult for others. The wisdom and kindness that had been taken for granted were now missed. This wasn't about revenge. It was about balance. The teacher had taught that absence creates space for appreciation. People often realize the value of something only after it's gone. Finding inner strength. During this time of silence, the seeker turned inward. They practiced mindfulness, meditated, and reflected on their emotions without judgment. The teacher introduced them to the concept of non-attachment, letting go of the need for approval to find true freedom. The seeker repeated a simple mantra: "I am enough, not because others say so, but because I exist." As the days passed, their heart, once heavy with rejection, grew lighter. They no longer felt the need to prove their worth to anyone. They realized that their value was independent of how others treated them. Meanwhile, those who had ignored the seeker began to notice their absence. Some came back with sincere apologies, while others stayed distant, trapped by their own pride. The teacher reminded the seeker, "Not everyone will recognize your worth, even after you walk away. That's not your burden to carry. What matters is that you've reclaimed your peace and self-respect." For those who returned with sincerity, the seeker welcomed them back, but with new boundaries. They made sure their worth would never be overlooked again. And for those who didn't return, they let them go without resentment, understanding that life moves forward. Embracing change and letting go. The seeker learned one of Zen's most profound truths: impermanence. Just like the seasons change, so do relationships. Holding on to what no longer serves us only causes more suffering. The teacher shared another parable. A tree bore sweet fruits, and people came to enjoy its shade. But over time, some grew careless, carving their names into its bark and breaking its branches. Still, the tree stood tall, offering its gifts. And when the time came to shed its leaves, it did so gracefully, knowing new growth awaited. Be like the tree, the teacher said. Give your best without expecting anything in return. And when it's time to let go, do so with grace. The seeker's newfound peace didn't just change how others saw them, it changed their entire life. As they focused on their growth, they attracted relationships and opportunities that matched their true self. The teacher often reminded them, what you nurture within reflects outward. When you honor your worth, the world mirrors it back to you. The seeker realized that feeling undervalued had actually been a blessing. It showed them where they had been compromising their dignity for the sake of harmony. By restoring balance, they unlocked a new way of living, one where their energy wasn't wasted on those who didn't appreciate it, but instead shared with those who did. A lesson for others. As the seeker grew wiser, others sought their advice. How do you remain so calm and confident? They asked. The seeker replied, it's not about teaching others to value you. It's about valuing yourself enough to walk away when they don't. One student asked, but what if I love the people who undervalue me? What if I can't bear to let them go? The seeker answered, love shouldn't chain you to suffering. True love starts with self-love. To love yourself means refusing to stay where your worth is diminished. It doesn't mean you stop loving them. It means you choose to love them from a distance that protects your peace. True freedom comes from within. With time, the seeker understood that letting go wasn't a strategy to regain value in others' eyes. It was a path to true freedom. When you stop needing validation, you live authentically. The teacher explained, imagine carrying a lantern through the darkness. If someone refuses its light, do you put it out? Or do you carry it forward, illuminating the way for yourself and those who appreciate it? This lesson became a guiding principle for the seeker. They no longer tried to convince others of their worth. Instead, they chose to shine, knowing that the right people would recognize their light. The balance of compassion and boundaries. Through these teachings, the seeker embraced both kindness and strength. They learned that compassion doesn't mean tolerating disrespect. Forgiveness doesn't require proximity. For those who had undervalued them but later sought reconciliation, the seeker offered forgiveness, but with clear boundaries. They no longer overextended themselves to prove their worth. Their actions and energy spoke for themselves. The ripple effect of self-worth. One evening, the teacher took the seeker to a pond. They watched as a single pebble sent ripples across the water. Your journey is like this ripple, the teacher said. By valuing yourself, you send waves of respect into the world. But remember, the ripple starts at the center, with you. With this wisdom, the seeker no longer saw rejection as a curse, but as a gift, a chance to rediscover their strength. They understood that losing certain people meant gaining something far greater, themselves. Final thought. When someone doesn't value you, step back, turn inward, and let the universe respond. You may lose some connections, but you'll gain your true self. Because in letting go of what no longer serves you, you find who you truly are. This is the path to freedom, self-worth, and peace. If this message resonated with you, remember, true strength comes from within. The Stoics teach us that wisdom isn't just learned, it's lived. So take this lesson, apply it, and walk forward with clarity and purpose. If you found value in this, consider subscribing to Stoic Trench for more timeless insights. And as always, stay disciplined, stay mindful, and keep walking the path of wisdom. Until next time.